What is up guys, Greedy Knight here with the 4th episode of the Special Investigation series. This time, we will be hunting the blood monsters Daimyo Hermitaur, Khezu, Tetranadon, and Bishaten. I'll be breaking down the matchups and the best sets for each monster so you can get that Special Investigation badge on your guild card. Let's get into it. Forlorn Arena, Infernal Springs, and the base arena are your go-to maps. This limits the monster to one area and you can fight with a full bar Spirit Bird health. You run one Palamute with the minigun and speed scroll along with the Gathering Palico equipped with the Kitinator. You get paralysis, knockdowns, and passive materials. Lastly, for your followers, you run with Hanoa and Utsushi, both equipped with hunting horns for heals and damage. Each part has a damage threshold. Meeting this threshold will cause a flinch, a trip, or a topple. Here's the site I used to find these values. It will be linked down below. By meeting the flinch threshold by the listed amount, you can cause the monster to trip or topple depending on the hit zone, giving you a window of damage lasting for a listed amount of time. It cannot enter the Curio explosion animation if it is toppled or tripped, so you have an incentive to focus on respective parts. At the start of a hunt, you will always use counter peak performance on the roar to get instant red shield charge. Whenever a monster is exhausted by a Curio topple, it will never successfully fire a projectile. It will perform the hitboxes animation, giving a free window of damage while it is drooling from exhaustion. For the Curio explosion, it's on a fixed timer similar to Teostra's Supernova. The only way to knock it out of the Curio state is by meeting a damage threshold. The Curio bubbles do not delay the timer, but act as a free chunk of damage to count towards the damage threshold. In other words, popping the Curio bubbles are not required to knock the monster out of the Curio state, but it does make it that much easier to do so. When the Curios start festering around the monster and the sound rings, that means you have 10 to 20 seconds before a monster turns into a nuke, which is why guard up 3 is mandatory to negate the explosion damage in case you can't deal enough damage in time. The Super Spam Fire set ends up doing more damage on average compared to the Thunder version. Rachna has higher final element, which converts to more damage on the same hit zone values. You can crack the Claw and Shells for Blood Awakening shenanigans, resulting in more damage whenever Blood Blight is not available. There are no set modifications since Dragon Conversion wipes away your water resistance and blight resistance is not worth the investment. Daimyo Hermitaur has 2 main weaknesses, Fire and Thunder. Thunder is effective everywhere but the legs, while Fire is effective everywhere but the legs and main body. The head, claws, and shell conduct heat and electricity with element exploit levels of efficacy. The shell and claws are the only breakable parts, locking in the Elembane hit zones once broken. You can cause a trip by focusing the head, body, and legs, giving free windows of damage with your shotgun-like supers. Spinning Axe is laughably bad here, due to Daimyo Hermitaur's natural armor, with the head serving as the only weakness exploit hit zone. There are 30 plus element hit zones on the head and claws, so those are your main targets throughout the hunt. For the Claw Slam, Daimyo will turn to the side and leap at you with a single hit slam. The force will lock its claw into the ground for a second, giving you a free window to super. Use Counter Peak or Guard Point into SAED. The Water Beam is a single hit beam that has a long range. Getting hit will cause Water Blight, so hold down your shield and wait for the beam to hit you. Afterwards, close the distance with morphing events to where Hermitaur settles for a super or guard point depending on its follow-up. The Claw Guard has Hermitaur Hermit behind its claws and shell. Hitting it will cause a retaliatory attack depending on which direction you are attacking. A side attack will be met with a Claw Swipe, a frontal attack will be met with a double Claw Slam, and attacking from behind will result in a reversal shell thrust. Use a quick Sword and Shield attack to bait out Hermitaur, then pop a counter peek in response. You are free to super afterwards. The Burrow attack has 2 follow-ups. The first is a Shell Stab from below, which can be followed up to 3 times, so just hang on to your guard. The second and more deadly follow-up is the Command Grab. It will swipe your ankles and grab you from below. You will eat a lot of damage from this attack. Guarding is the safest thing you can do for both of these options because you do not know which option it will pick until it surfaces. Committing to a counter peek can cause you to cart for it. Crab Walk is Hermitaur's way of moving around the map while staying mobile and aggressive. It will spam claw swipes. Use morphing events to move in and out of its range, staying wary of the water beam. You can make Hermitaur approach you by moving out of range, and it will chase you down. Crustacean Crush causes Hermitaur to leap into the air and attempt to sit on you. Hold guard to ignore the attack. Because Hermitaur lands on top of you, your positioning is terrible for a super, so reposition afterwards instead of going straight into a super. If you are behind Hermitaur's shell, it will perform a reverse stab with its Monoblo shell. You will see the shell shake, acting as a cue to guard or counterpeek. Follow up with the super since its face and claws will be in the direction of that super. The Super Spam Thunder set outputs the most damage, especially because Tetranadon's easy to hit, blobby body. For set modifications, I would recommend Stun Resistance because of Tetranadon's clap move, which insta-stuns you. You can also slot in Tremor Resistance to negate its quakes from its stomps and belly slimes. Tetranadon's weakness is Thunder, being effective everywhere but the back, tail, and hind legs. The head, forelegs, and belly whilst inflated are Elembane hit zones. The breakables are the head, body, and legs. For topples, you break its legs. Also, you can pop its belly balloon for a dramatic topple. Tetranadon has a few variations of water balls. It will fire 3 water balls that rain down on you. Just step forward if you want to avoid the damage. The spacing for this move is just right for a counter peek into a super as well. The single water ball is a projectile similar to Toadversary's ball. It is hard to react to point blank, but you can guard or counter peek in preparation. The water laser is Tetranadon's quote-unquote supernova if you don't pop its balloon of a belly. It will vomit water in a wide area. You can prevent this move from ever coming out by targeting its very good hit zone inflated stomach. The belly flop and backflip are leaping moves that Tetranadon performs depending on its state. It can always perform the belly flop with its stomach inflated, while only performing the follow-up backflip while enraged. You hold guard until the backflip. If you get hit, waterfall away to avoid getting comboed. After the backflip, it will be a turtle on its back struggling to its feet, so it's a free window to super. The ground pound is a tremoring stomp. Like a sumo wrestler, it will slam one foot and then the other to create a mini quake. The inflated version has a larger quake than the deflated state. Use your guarding options to counter both with a super. Do note that Tetranadon will home in on you, so do not think you can escape. Tetranadon will dig up a rock and lug it around. It will throw the rock in your general direction. A flash bomb will cause it to drop the rock before it can throw it. Breaking the rock will create a mini window similar to Kuluyaku, so set up for a super afterwards. If it throws the rock at you, just hold guard and then reposition. The Pebble Wave is a ranged attack of water, air, and pebbles. It will only use this move if you are far away from Tetranadon, so you can hover near it to prevent this move from ever coming out. Otherwise, you can hold your shield to stop it. The Kappa Charge is Tetranadon's belly rush attack. The deflated attack will be a single rush, while the inflated version will be a 2-part rush. It will cause shield chip damage, so you should guard point it to raise your guarding level, thus negating the chip damage and healing some of your health from a file burst, assuming you have Blood Blight active. Target guard to swivel around as it rushes you from behind 2 to 3 times. This move is very uninteractive, so your only option is to play defensively whenever Tetranadon chooses to use this move. Unfortunately, the only way to stop it is to interrupt it the good old-fashioned way by meeting a topple threshold. The Stunning Clap is the reason why you should run Stun Resistance if you cannot 100% guard this attack. It will insta-stun you, leading into any fatality Tetranadon wants to perform on you. Holding guard is the safest option, but you can counter peek it for a follow-up super, assuming you can get your timing right. Missing your counter peek will cost you a stun into a consequent cart. Tetranadon will do a mini rush attack after showing you the jazz hands. Hold guard because it purposely delays the attack to bait out counters, forcing them to be mistimed. Do not counter peek this move because it is a 2-hit move. If it passes through you, just reposition for a super, otherwise go for the guard point super. Pin attacks are telegraphed by a mouth swipe attack. It will nibble at you, launching you into the air. Waterfall to safety, otherwise you will get crushed by its belly. The expanded belly version is a command grab with both hands, so guard the initial grab to avoid the lengthy command animation. The follow-up belly slam attack will cause a tremor. If you are too close to Tetranadon's hitbox, you will not be able to stand up against this tremor. If you get caught by the command grabs, waterfall the second you are free from its grasp to avoid the similar follow-up. While you can use the fire super spam set, I'll be using the spinning axe set because it's easier for me. There are very few topples that you can take advantage of, and Khezu continuously combos, leaving very room to safely pop a super. The only set modifications you can make are stun resistance and paralysis resistance to prevent the ghoulish leech from comboing you in Khezu's fashion. Khezu is a relatively stationary monster, so you should be able to box with it while it stays in one place. Make sure to have guard up 3 equipped to negate the electro ball damage with a block. For Khezu's roars, take a step back before counter peeking because its extended neck will move past your shield as it blasts your eardrums with a hearty screech. Khezu's weakness is fire. Only the legs are resistant to fire, which is why you never skip leg day. Everywhere else is element exploit and Elembane country. Focus on Khezu's head and neck for optimal damage. Moving on to the breakables, the head and legs are your targets. Locking in a 2-point raise on the legs post break. Sweep the leg for topples. The Electro Breath Barrage is a shower of electric balls that inflict Thunder Blight. Use Morphing Advance and then an evade towards Khezu to avoid the move once you reach one evade length away from its body. You can follow up with a double chop. The extended neck swing is not safe for work. Khezu slams down its neck, sweeping from side to side like an elephant trunk. Use ready stance into a double chop to get some free damage in while it retracts its face. The Electric Breath is a Thunder SAED firing 3 electric balls of energy. It will eat through guard up 3, so do not tank this hit on low health. The move locks Khezu in place, so just wait for Khezu to lock down its tail and move to the side for a free window to super or double chop. There is an improved version with 5 balls instead of 3, but it does not matter because you will always strive to be off to the side instead of facing towards Khezu. The neck lunge attack will shoot Khezu's face forward in a spiral. Just like with the other neck attack, just ready stance it and then use a double chop afterwards, while Khezu retracts its face. The tail swipe is a repeat of the double 360 tail spin. It will have a tail before each spin, so you could ready stance the first and have enough time to single chop and then ready stance the second one. It can mix up the second spin with another move, so watch for Khezu's options. You can always back out by morphing events away from Khezu. Electric Discharge is a get off Khezu option. It will discharge an area of electricity that counts as a single hit. However, when it's enraged, it will use this move twice, so guard the first hit and then guard the second hit. Khezu will be locked in this animation for a brief window, so feel free to reset your files, shield charge, or just use your DPS options. Pounce has 2 variations, the non-electric version and the electric version. Either way, just guard it. Khezu will leap through your shield and end up behind you, so reposition afterwards with a morphing advance, or use a ready sense to 360 and double chop behind you. Since we are fighting in non-sealing maps, Khezu is unable to do any of the sealing latching moves. Your overall damage will thank you for it because Khezu likes to hang for a good 20 seconds before coming down while using these attacks. One final note for Khezu is that its electrical attacks will never cause blood blight. This makes the Khezu matchup relatively hard due to most of its arsenal being electrically based. So you have to be hit by the neck or tail attacks to get blood blight. The Ice Spinning Axe set will output optimal damage. For set modifications, you can slot in poison resistance and paralysis resistance to negate the various effects of Bishaten's fruits. The Flash Fruit is not formally a stun attack, so you cannot use stun resistance against it. You have to be smart with your ready stances, otherwise you will need to block an attack and not have a wire bug ready. Make sure to use your counter more/guard point from Axe to Sword and Shield if you need to. Intrepid Heart will put in a lot of work during this hunt. Bishaten's weakness is Ice. However, it lacks the hit zones to support Super Spam, so Spinning Axe will be your build here. It is for the best because Bishaten is another mobile monster that boxes with you the entire hunt. The best cutting and element hit zones are stacked on the head and tail, making them your targets. Your breakables are the head, wings, and tail. Your topple hit zones are the front and back legs. Also, if you focus on Bishaten while it's standing on its tail, it will do a dramatic topple. Bishaten slams 2 poison fruits on the ground and leaves a poisonous mist. Use ready stance to negate the poison hitbox, then resume double chopping afterwards. The aerial dash is a spinning dash through the air. It can use this move twice before settling on its hand-like tail. There's a fruit version scattering Bishaten's arsenal as it flies through the air. Your simplest option is to hold guard and target guard the entire animation. If you want to maintain your spinning axe, you have to either move out of Bishaten's range with a morphing advance, or use ready stance into an evade into a second ready stance, all while target guarding. After it stops its onslaught, morphing advance over to Bishaten and start double chopping its tail once more. Bishaten throws around fruit with its arm and tail as a means of attack. There is the fruit barrage, the fruit toss, and the flash fruit. The fruit barrage is Bishaten's quote-unquote supernova, where it hurls a bunch of fruit in your direction. Use morphing advance towards its tail and double chop. The arcing fruit will fly harmlessly over your head, assuming you are not too far away from Bishaten. This is a free window to topple Bishaten by focusing on its tail and knocking it down. As for the fruit toss, it is a single fruit tossed with side spin by its tail hand. If your buddies are in your way, they will take the fruity bullet. Otherwise, ready stance if your meat shields are not present. The flash fruit has a lengthy animation. Bishaten will toss and catch a yellow fruit as it cloaks itself with its wings. It will leap and land with a flash. Counter peek is safe here, so when you see the windup, swap scrolls and pop peek. Reset spinning axe and chop its tail. Lastly, Bishaten will grab either paralysis or poison fruit, front flip forward, and throw a cloud of the respective status, masking its face with its wings. This is the reason for paralysis resistance, so you could just walk through the cloud while only worrying about ready stancing the tail slam itself. Follow up with your double chop. Bishaten does repeated somersaults while moving forward. It will roll thrice, so your main option is to hold guard. Unless you meet the topple threshold, there isn't much else you can do except tank the attack or move out of its way. Reposition for double chops afterwards. There are 3 tail attacks to note. It will do a handstand before swiping sideways and then upwards, landing again on its tail. Ready stance into double chop is your response. The second move has Bishaten somersault forward 3 times, landing on its tail each time. You can use ready stance for the first hit and then evade towards Bishaten to make the second hit miss, giving you time to pop a second ready stance. Alternatively, you can just morphing advance away and make Bishaten chase you. The final tail attack will only be performed after Bishaten glides. It will land with a spinning tail slam, turning Bishaten into a Beyblade. Use ready stance into a double chop for this move. Bishaten uses its claws to attack hunters at close range. The double claw swipe has Bishaten balanced on its tail as it swipes left and right. If you stay on the far left or the far right, the other attack will not be able to hit you. If you are in the center of the move's range, then you will have to guard both. The second claw attack is a double swipe into a tail slam combo. You have to hold guard or move out of range to avoid this triple threat of an attack. Reposition to the head or tail afterwards, and double chop. Like if this video was useful to you, consider subscribing if you want to see more content like this. Comment down below your thoughts on special investigations or anything in general. That's all I got for this one. Greedy Knight, signing out.